Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our learning series, ACB Intersections. My name is Michelle James, and I'm the coordinator of the Ottawa Black Mental Health Coalition. The coalition's goal is to achieve a more equitable mental health system by improving access to culturally appropriate mental health supports for Black residents. We honor the integrity of our early Black ancestors and acknowledge their resilience while recognizing their contributions to human civilization. We take this opportunity to reflect on our current condition in the country, and we will continue to work with our allies towards continuing to improve the lives of diverse people on this shared land. Merci beaucoup, Asante, and thank you for being with us today. Welcome back to the series, which is ongoing throughout 2022, and I hope today that we find you well and warm. Before we start, I want to acknowledge the land on which we're gathered. We begin our session by acknowledging that the land on which we gather today is the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. The Algonquin people have lived on this land since time immemorial. It's important to acknowledge and extend our respect to all First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people for their valuable past, present contributions to this land. With this in mind, the Ottawa Black Mental Health Coalition respectfully acknowledges and appreciates our presence on Algonquin Anishinaabe ancestral lands. We are grateful for the opportunity to be present in this territory and here with you today. Miigwech. Today, we are using the Zoom Q&A function for this event. So you can submit questions using the Q&A icon, which you'll see at the bottom of your screen towards the left-hand side. You can click on that icon to access the Q&A window where you can type your questions. We'll be saving the questions for after the presentation, and we'll try to get to as many of them as possible. Before we start, I also want to let you know that there will be the sharing of information and the discussion of sensitive or triggering topics, for example, suicide. I want to let folks know that if you do feel affected by the discussion today, that you can reach the Distress Center at 613-238-3311 if you are feeling impacted. So let me begin by introducing our speakers today for today's discussion on peer support. Sylmadel Koch is a trained mental health peer support worker who works and lives in Ottawa and is an advocate for diversity in approaches to mental health responses. Sylmadel spent 20 years as a frontline worker in shelters for women and children abused and impacted by domestic violence. She has devoted energy to birthing and delivery, public education, anti-Black discrimination and racism, and Indigenous rights. Sylmadel is an environmentalist who is concerned about food and water security, and she grows year-round and preserves her own food. Sylmadel is particularly interested in the intersection of race and mental health, and she's currently a board member at Mood Disorders Ottawa, as well as a co-facilitator of the ACB Mental Health Peer Support Group. Sharon Roberts, our other presenter, has been working as a peer supporter for the past 8 years with Mood Disorders Ottawa and Psychiatric Survivors of Ottawa. She's been facilitating recovery programs such as the Wellness Recovery Action Plan, Pathways to Recovery, Tell Your Story workshop, and peer support groups, as well as serving on their board. She has shared about her journey with mental illness at the Royal Ottawa Hospital, in churches, and the Ontario Disability Support Program, as well as at other events in the community. Sharon also currently serves on the Client Advisory Council at the Royal Ottawa. Sharon is passionate about personal growth and wellness and encourages individuals who experience mental health challenges to advocate on their behalf whenever the opportunity arises. I want to welcome Sharon and Sylmadel today. And ladies, you have the floor. Thanks for being with us. Sylmadel, if you just want to unmute yourself.
Thank you so much.
There we go. It happens all the time. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for inviting us, and also for members of the community who are here to participate in that. Thank you as well for sharing this moment of your time with us. We really appreciate that. So the way we decided to do this is that I will go first, and after which Sharon will speak. So Michelle, is it possible for me to have share screen? I have a Michelle, could you share your screen with me, please?
There you go. You should be okay to share screen now.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So for today, we're going to be talking about mental health peer support. My name is Sylmadel, as we've already mentioned, and I am the program coordinator for the ACB Mental Health Peer Support Group, Canada. And so the format I'm going to take today is I'm going to talk about what is peer support, the research, what is the research saying regarding peer support, why African, Caribbean, and Black mental health peer support, what are we, as in who we are as an organization, a small and growing organization, and where do we go from here? Webster defines peer support as, I just have to pop it on my screen for a second. Sorry. I think it's important to define what we mean when we say peer support. And Webster defines peer support as one that is of equal standing with another, of equal rank, character, or status, equality in values or circumstances, identical in amount, extent, or portion. Peers also share the same etymology with words such as peer and par. And I think the reason it's important to have an understanding of what do we mean when we say peers, make sure we're on the same page. I think it's also particularly relevant when we're talking in the context of Black mental health peer support. What does that mean in terms of us having access to peer support? So peer is a relationship based on mutuality. It promotes the growth and well-being of oneself and on another person. Peer support, these are the values of peer support. And I've done an extensive list, and by no means is it as thorough as it could have been. It promotes solidarity. It promotes synergy, sharing with safety and trust, companionship, hopefulness, a focus on our strengths and our potential, a sense of equality, empowerment, independence, reduction of stigma, respect, inclusiveness, commitments to resilience, and recognizes agency of individual. It's empathic understanding, and most importantly, it's clear communication. This is what peer support is not. It does not welcome the overt, powerful hierarchies that are involved in professional helping relationships. And if you look at the history from that kind of hierarchy to peer support, you can see, for example, where peer support has to do with agency, making decisions about oneself, as opposed to where one person is the expert over the other. And you normally see that traditionally in institutions, in psychiatry, where these institutions or individuals are the expert on your life. Peer support flips the narrative about where the power lies. When I try to look at the early history of peer support, of course, it came from people from all over the world. I think I've always had peer support, but and find solace in meeting with others and having similar experiences. And that sharing is peer support. Although it was not always called that. When you see a group of people, a group of women gather in our cultures, in our countries around the country, providing peer support. The documented origin of European peer support reaches back into the history of psychiatry, social movements, self-help, and survival-led initiatives. I like to call that grassroots organization, which was influenced, of course, by many other struggles. There women's struggle, the disability struggles, they were influenced by the Black liberation struggles of the 60s in terms of methodology. Former mental health service users were empowered to help others and advocate for themselves. So that is basically the root, the beginning of peer support. In 18th century Paris, Jean-Baptiste, a psychiatrist, stated that as much as possible, all staff servants, and these staff servants were actually mental patients, they were chosen from the category. And at any rate, it was commented that they were better suited to this demanding work because they were usually more gentle, more honest, and more humane. And that comment was made in 1773. Sorry. A review of patient records from 1870 to 1940 from Canadian Asylum identifies numerous cases where, and this is a quote, patient inmates offered both formal and informal assistance to other patients, which appeared to help them both. Why peer support? This is the research. Well, the main impact of peer support is on the service user and the peer supporter. It is helpful to consider the wider impact of peer support has on families, communities, and the wider mental health systems. Nelson in 2007 stated found increased community integration for service users who were involved with consumer survivor initiatives. They also found an increased quality of life in relation to daily living activities and a significantly greater involvement in work or participation in education. Also discovered that the service users who received peer support were discharged from hospitals on an average of 116 days earlier per person. Lon and his colleagues in 2008 evaluated an Australian mental health peer support service, which confirmed hospital avoidance and early discharge support. They found that in the first 3 months of operation, over 300 bed days were saved. Peer support has potential for encouraging greater focus on recovery, both in the culture and in the practice of mental health service. This is Nelson. Shipman compared a peer support outpatient program in the US with traditional care and found 50% reduction in hospitalization compared to the general outpatient population. Only 15% of the outpatients were peer support. Only 15% of the outpatient with peer support were re-hospitalized in the first year of operation. So we're looking at 15% compared to 50%. Min in 2007 confirmed the same outcomes with peer support programs over a 3-year period. So it wasn't just this was a more expanded research as opposed to a shorter period. They found that participants receiving peer support had longer periods of living in the community without rehospitalization than the comparison group. 73% of people in the comparison group were rehospitalized versus 63% in the peer support group. The number of days in the community until the first hospitalization was 239 days for clients who did not have peer support, compared to 426 for clients who had peer support. In short, we know peer support works. Peer support helps people stay to these treatment plans longer, fewer hospital days and reduced stays as well, better self-esteem, confidence, and social skills, less medication, increased independence and a sense of hope, reduce health costs, build a person's self-confidence, sense of empowerment, and ability to function, an increased support network, which is very important to recovery, and increased participation in education and work. Peer support works. So the next question is, why ACB mental health peer support? Why do we need to have ACB peer support for the Black community? So this comment was, why do we need to have peer support for just Black people? Support group is a support group. And if one race wants a group of their own, then soon every group would want their own. This comment was made to me at my prominent member of the local mental health community. And I included that comment because I think it's important to see where mainstream organizations are in terms of recognition for the need of ACB mental health peer support. Like most peer support groups, we comply as well to the general guidelines. The major difference is we don't ask you directly or indirectly to check your Blackness at the door. When an issue of racism comes up, we don't ask you to talk about something else that we can all relate it to. A woman in our support group actually mentioned that when she tried to talk about the impact of race on her mental health, one of the participants in the group made that comment to her, why don't we talk about something we can all relate to? We believe that racism and mental health are intrinsically intertwined and must be addressed together. We're anchored in an anti-racist, anti-Black racism, and anti-oppression framework. We acknowledge the negative impact of anti-Black racism, prejudice, and stigma on Black bodies. Racism, racial abuse, and racial violence affects the health and mental health of individuals and communities. Racism is in itself a social determinant of mental health, as well as a root cause of other social determinants of health, such as poverty, inadequate housing, and underemployment. Mainstream mental health peer support groups does not address aspects of identity like race, ethnicity, culture, or experiences of discrimination in and out of treatment settings. Affinity peer support groups are created around race and culture, attempts to approach individuals in a more holistic way. In our group, ACB Mental Health Peer Support, our aim is to provide a safe space for members of the ACB community to discover our own healing potential at our pace. Our mission is to create a space of inspiration, support, community, healing that is rooted in the idea that we believe in our ability to heal. One key difference in our approach is that we aren't just looking to provide groups that ignore the social and political cause of oppression for ACB individuals. We're also looking to be a space for people to share in decolonized dialogue and build community. We acknowledge the diversity among racialized people who, in addition to race, may also be discriminated against on the count of their religion, language, ethnicity, class, gender, sexual orientation, disability, age, country of origin, citizenship, and all the other variations included in that. A truly holistic, inclusive, equitable care must respond to the intersectionality of all forms of oppression. Some quick facts. The suicide rate among young Black youth is increasing faster than any other racial ethnic group. The American Academy of Pediatrics defined racism as a social determinant of health, which has a profound impact on the mental health status of ethnic minority children and adolescents. And I included that because it shows the need to be able to provide some. Vicarious trauma, which is something I think that I needed to include because sometimes we don't consider the impact of the things we see. Vicarious trauma refers to indirect trauma that can occur from secondhand exposure to difficult, disturbing images and stories. As minority individuals who are repeatedly exposed to graphic reports, news, social media posts that depicts discrimination, racism, police brutality, murders, etc., we become vulnerable to vicarious trauma. I remember when during when Floyd was killed by the police, I remember how there was a rawness in this depiction of what Black people are exposed to at the hands of the police and other systems. So these are some of the symptoms that may not have anything to do with you or your own experience, but somehow they create for you symptoms such as difficulty sleeping, anxiety, hopelessness, substance abuse, hypertension, and more. An exploratory study found that in a sample of 106 counselors, 70.8% of respondents reported working with clients who reported experiences of race-based trauma. However, only 18.9% of the sample reported that they had received training to treat race-based trauma. And that is very important because, we're entering into these spaces where we're not seen as holistically, and the integration between race and mental health is not understood. So then we end up, being in therapy that is actually ineffective. In a large sample of 2,212 ACB members, 81%, this is interesting, reported experiencing at least one racial microaggression in counseling. This is where you go to get help. 42.1% reported having a counselor who seemed unaware of the realities of race and racism. I discovered the term cultural concealment while I was doing my research. And the research indicates that clients who report concealing their culture, their race, identity, background during counseling experience poorer therapy outcomes. I like this quote: if you can't talk about your race and your culture, it ain't support. I wanted to look also, what is the situation in Canada? Black Canadians have been placed at a disadvantage when it comes to their mental health. Given their subjugation to trauma through enslavement, oppression, colonialism, racism, and segregation, much of which extends to the experience of mental health care inequity today. 38% of Black Canadian residents with poor or fair self-reported mental health use mental health service residents in 2001 and 2014. Based on a 2018 study of 328 Black Canadians, 60% said they would be more willing to use mental health services if the mental health professional were Black. According to a 2020 Statistics Canada survey, for most measures of mental health, during the COVID-19 pandemic, participants from the Black group reported poorer self-related mental health and greater financial insecurity compared to white participants. .9% of Black respondents compared to 22.9% of white respondents reported fair or self-rated mental health. Among Black Caribbean populations, wait times for mental health care averages 16 months, more than twice those for whites, average 7 months. Where do we go from here? Before I cover that, I want to give a little bit of brief history of us as Black mental health, ACB mental health care support workers. I found myself in a situation where I needed mental health support. So I couldn't find anything. I went to counseling and I experienced some of the microaggressions that were there as well. I didn't continue. So I started looking for community support that I did not find. So then I got trained as a peer support worker. And during my training, I experienced overt racism, microaggression in all its forms, and decided at that point that we need to do something about it. We had a mini conference at Carleton University that was very well attended by different segments of the community, and decided we had a couple of groups. We had stigmas around mental health from our community perspective, both in terms of ACB community, so looking at the continental and the diaspora in terms of how do we view mental health. We had a group for men, we had a group for peer support, and a group for youth. Out of that conference, we realized the need to have a mental health peer support. So we booked a space and we waited and no one showed up. And, I'm not personally, was not surprised because I understand that our community, by and large, has not had good relationship with therapy or counseling or groups, and also the issue of confidentiality. But we ventured, we continued to participate in different local mental health organizations and continue to provide peer support both in terms of facilitating and one-on-one support. So for us, in looking at where we go from here, developing more peer support groups in Ottawa, developing specific groups for men, seniors, to LGBTQ, faith groups, to name a few. Also, they need to do mental health public education in our communities. I think that is a big piece of where we need to go. Reaching out to other ACB communities across Canada, forming partnerships and collaborations with other like-minded groups, training more peer support workers, providing education to mainstream organizations how to better serve our communities when they come in contact with you, placing ACB mental health peer support workers in hospitals, the police service, and I add their wellness check. I want to give a quick story. One of the women in our group actually called the police for a wellness check for herself. She was just not doing well. She called the police. She ended up being placed on the floor, being handcuffed, and treated that way while she was taken to the hospital. And one of the things about coming in contact with the police is often can be a triggering situation because the police tend to elicit fear in our community. So, and the police is afraid of us. Not sure why, but definitely our experiences have taught us to be afraid of the police as well. So what we're thinking would be, is having peer support mental health workers accompany the police when there's a need for a wellness check. And I just read an article this week that in Toronto now, they have a peer support worker and a mental health worker that goes with the police to do a wellness check. So we're hoping that that is something that will come to Ottawa sooner than later. We need to provide education to other mental health organizations that offer peer support. And finally, collect data and participate in race-based research. Those are some of the things that I think we need to go from here. And what I have after that is the research that I have used. So thank you. That is what I have in terms of mental health peer support, the research, where we are and where we're going. So thank you so much for your time. So the next person, Sharon, will be speaking next. And Sharon will be sharing her story. So thank you so much, Sharon. Sharon? Sophia, is Sharon available?
Stop share. You need to stop share.
Oh, thank you. Sorry about that.
Thanks. Okay. Thank you, Sylmadel.
You're very welcome.
And thank you, Michelle, and members of the Ottawa Black Mental Health Coalition for this opportunity to share my story about my mental health journey and for my partner to speak about what we're doing in regard to peer support for mental health in our community. Imagine with me that you are 6 years old. Your parents have split up. Then your mother immigrates to Canada, leaving you and your 5-year-old, 3-year-old, and 6-month-old brothers to live with grandmothers and aunts because your father, who owned his own house and a car and provided very well for his family, has become addicted to alcohol and therefore is no longer capable of providing for his family. Imagine moving approximately 9 times before the age of 13. And at that age, you are reunited with your mother, who has been struggling to make a better life for her 4 children and herself. To Canada, a country with a totally different culture and different weather. Imagine being in 2nd year of high school in your country and being put into grade 8 when you get to Canada. I'm guessing that some of you can relate to some of what I just shared, or you know of someone who can. I'm not really a fan of boxing, but guess what? Like it or not, I'm in the ring. I am a fighter. It's Sharon versus depression and anxiety. It began at the age of 17 when I returned to Canada from Guyana, my country of birth, after a summer holiday. As the fall turned into winter, I too began to change. I unknowingly entered the ring with an unforgiving and unrelenting opponent. The change started with my mood, where I had previously been happy. A deep sadness engulfed me. Every day after school, I returned home, did my chores, and retreated to my room where my pink teddy bear became my best friend. I had lost interest in life and stopped doing the things that I loved, such as singing in a youth choir, traveling, and extracurricular activities at school. My brother said it was like walking around on eggshells around the house. My mother would buy my favorite foods, and she would do whatever she could to try to cheer me up. Like so many families who notice that something is different and want to help, but don't know about mental illness. Out of desperation, she sent me to a Christian boarding school in Oshawa. After all, she had 3 other children to take care of. By God's grace, I managed to hold it together, get married, complete an internship, graduate from high school, earn a degree in food and nutrition, get married, and complete an internship to become a registered dietitian. 2 sons later, now living and working in the Elliott Lake area, like a house of cards, everything came crashing down. I'm not sure exactly when it all began, but I do remember feeling as though I was all alone in the world for many months. Even when I was surrounded by people, I had this deep sense of no one in the world cared for me, and I didn't have the strength to continue to care about anything or fully care for anyone. Every morning, I would struggle to get dressed for work, get into my blue Windstar, wipe my eyes, perform my duties at work, cry my way back home, wipe my eyes again, and muster up just enough courage to enter my home. Everything was moving too fast, and I just couldn't keep up. The signs pointing to depression were all there, but I didn't know. I didn't know what it was. Finally, one day at work, I just couldn't wipe away the tears and face the music anymore. After seeing a few clients, I dropped to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. It was only then that I was able to put a name to the problem. Dysthymia, premenstrual dysphoric disorder, and postpartum depression had become clinical depression and generalized anxiety. My mom, my mom's initial reaction, typical West Indian, bless her heart, said when I told her, "How could you be depressed? You have a good job, 2 beautiful children, and a good husband." Emphasis on the good husband. She was right. I did. And at the same time, I was experiencing a mental illness. I saw my family doctor, who prescribed medication, which seemed to make things worse at the time. I was hospitalized. After a few days, there was no change. My husband was out of the country, so one of my brothers drove to Elliott Lake and brought my kids and I back to Ottawa because our supports were here. Having family support was very helpful when I was unable to help myself. Please don't ever underestimate the value of family support. I became a fighter when I was hospitalized for the second time here in Ottawa. April was the receptionist who was working at the desk at the time. During my stay, I observed that some patients had repeated admissions, and I wondered why. So I asked April. She told me that in her opinion, the ones who keep coming back have lost their fight, and those who don't come back or don't come back as often still have some fight left in them. So I took what she said to heart and made a decision that I would become a boxer and fight for my life. My training began when a psychiatrist signed me up for a day program. I went in cold, not knowing what to expect. Like an untrained fighter, I was wide open, didn't have my hands up to protect myself. We, the participants, had varying diagnoses, but similar symptoms. This actually felt good. I immediately learned two things. One, there were others like myself, other boxers, and I was not alone. And two, there was something that I could do about the illness. I had to decide if I had fight or not, and I did. It might have been faint, but I had some. In boxing, they call that heart. Heart matters more than skills because you can learn the skills, but to be a good boxer, you must have heart. In his blog, Doug Ward says, a physical heart may beat solidly in your chest, but a fighter's heart echoes through his soul or her soul. Having heart isn't just about being able to take punches, absorb punishment, and keep coming back for more. It's about digging deeper than most can, more than what's common or comfortable, to win at all costs. And I was determined to win. I, of course, didn't know how difficult the road to recovery would be. Many months were spent in bed, not well enough to cope with even the simplest tasks, such as taking a shower, brushing my teeth, or even focusing my mind to write my own name. The sadness and fatigue seemed insurmountable. Mental illness can be pretty paralyzing. A person can live in a catatonic state for days, months, and even years, comparable to a knockout punch from which it is often difficult to recover. There were days that I wanted my life to be over. Suicidal thoughts consumed my mind. It seemed like the only way out. In fact, I thought at the time that it was normal to not want to live. At times I wanted to make it out though. I needed to make it out, if not for myself, then for my two sons and husband and the rest of the weary ones, my family and friends who were there for me, who gave me hope when I couldn't find it for myself. Boxers refer to those folks as your fans and coaches. They provide sips of water and clean the wounds between rounds and cheer from the sidelines and in your corner. Boxers can't win lying down. In order to win, they must stand up and face their opponent. Before I could stand a chance of winning, I had to accept the fact that I was in the fight, accept that I had depression and anxiety. That's really difficult for anyone with a mental illness, mainly because of the stigma, and particularly because of the way our African Caribbean Black community view the disease. Stigma is a systemic problem for us. Even highly educated professionals find it easier to believe a loved one is possessed, get obia, or is lazy. Dreading the shame and the guilt, I hid it for as long as I could, but soon realized that for me to get better, I could no longer keep it a secret. So I talked about it with anyone who would listen, including Sylmadel. After a few years, I managed to return to work as a dietitian, but it was too much, so I had to quit. One of the realities of being a boxer is that you lose some fights. Still, I kept up the fight. At one point, I became well enough to attend school and get a diploma in social services. I then got a job, which lasted for 2 years, and it was back into hospital. Even if, as a fighter, maintaining wellness is quite the roller coaster. However, putting in the work to get better has paid dividends over the years. I'd like to share with you a few things that helped me earlier on. One, acceptance. Acceptance is key for both the individual and the family. Attending and facilitating recovery programs and one-on-one counseling also helped me at hospitals, Serenity Renewal, Christian Counseling, Al-Anon, peer support groups at Psychiatric Survivors of Ottawa, which is where I was introduced to peer support, and Mood Disorders Ottawa. Some of the programs that I have been facilitating include RAP and Tell Your Story. Tell Your Story is a workshop where individuals come together to write their story, and then we go into the community and share our stories, which Michelle mentioned a few places that we've gone to share our stories. I've also been doing support groups, facilitating support groups, and more recently, a group called Writers Collective of Canada, which you can join at Somerset West Community Health Center. I've also been taking medication and dietary supplements, staying on my medication and adjusting it with my doctor so that I could function on a daily basis. Once I got off of my medication, and it didn't go very well. Celebrating our achievements, practicing self-care, listening to music, songs like Three Little Birds, that goes like this. Don't worry about a thing, because every little thing, you know the one, is gonna be all right. That is one of my favorites, and I have a few more. What has helped me to stay well? Well, I've gotten to know my body over the years, so I sleep when I need to and try not to feel guilty about it. Being honest and open about how I'm doing and letting my family know exactly where I am. Taking responsibility was key because that opened the door to getting educated about the illness. Sayings like, "This too shall pass," not easy to say when things are also like, God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of love and of power and a sound mind, in Timothy. Belief in God and lots of prayers. I remember one of my moms, you know, the moms, aunties and uncles who aren't blood relatives, but we have to show respect. Well, Mommy I would sit on the floor when I was at my lowest and read Bible verses and pray for me, and that helped me a lot. I've been working at a daycare for about 8 years now, part-time, and serving on boards of mental health organizations. Peer support is one of the many things that has made a big difference in my life because it gave me connection. Connecting with others who share similar struggles has been a game changer. And it has been my dream and Sylmadel's dream to see our people accessing this service. I share my story with you today because just as I have managed to recover some losses stolen from me by this awful disease and forged a new path, I have witnessed others doing the same. Also because one of you listening to this seminar might be feeling lost and alone like I did before I took up the fight. Or you might be witnessing a loved one who's struggling and not know how to help them. I'm here with you because part of my fight is helping others to pick up their gloves and beat the odds in the fight with heart and with hope. Thank you.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. Sharon, Sylmadel, gosh, every time I hear you guys speak. I appreciate so much your vulnerability, your statistics and information, and your candor, and I really appreciate that piece that you said about discovering our own healing potential at our own pace. I just think that's such a beautiful way to think about it. I'm going to invite Sophia Jacob from the coalition to say a few closing remarks. I know that Sharon and Sylmadel, you need to step away so that you can prepare to support the participants in the ACB Mental Health Peer Support Group. We only had one question, which was whether or not we would be able to share some resources and the slides that you shared with us today. So I'm happy to let everyone know that we will be sharing that information with you following the webinar. Thank you so much, Sharon and Sylmadel, for being with us today. It was wonderful to have you. Thank you. Sophia, if you want to say a few words before we wrap things up, take it over. Oh, you're still on mute.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Thank you so much, Sylmadel, and thank you so much, Sharon. Your stories are compelling. The information that you gave is wonderful, and we are fortunate to have you with us in CWCLN. So a little bit about the organization. The Canadian Women of Color Leadership Network is a nonprofit grassroots organization that was established in 2018 right here in Ottawa. The CWCLN does recognize that our office is located on the unceded and unsurrendered land of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. We are founded on the pillars of women in leadership, wellness, economic development, and community partnerships. One of the big partnerships for us is the peer support workers and their program. It is vital to have it out there. We know, yes, that we are a women in femme organization, but we made sure to envelop them under our wing because we know the vital work that they are doing. And we love continuing the collaboration and also building up our platform of peer support for women in femmes. So I want to thank Sylmadel and Sharon for all the work that they've been doing with various organizations. And I ask the public to help them continue the work for funding and support collaborations. When you look to them for the support of ACB people through peer support, through culturally appropriate peer support. It is all needed and is all necessary for us to continue mental health and wellness for Black people and Black Canadians. So again, I want to thank you guys for allowing us to come in, and I want to thank you all for the collaboration going forward. Please support Sharon and Sylmadel's work and their meetings that they have weekly on Wednesdays, and I'll allow Michelle to elaborate on all that information. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sophia. Again, I'd like to thank Sharon and Sylmadel for being with us, for sharing their journey and their enthusiasm. I'm going to let you guys go so that you can prepare the session, which will begin very shortly. For those of you interested, I'll be sharing information about the ACB Mental Health Peer Support Group that Sharon and Sylmadel are currently facilitating, and you'll be able to access the flyer and the registration information. I also want to let folks know that we'll be back again in February for another edition of ACB Intersections. We'll be discussing the relationship between mothers and daughters. Also, February is Black History Month, and we encourage you to explore the learning and discussion opportunities that are going to be available through our member organizations. You can find out more on our Coalition Facebook page. Also, I wanted to let folks know that Black Mental Health Week is coming up March 1st through 7th. The Ottawa Black Mental Health Coalition will be hosting several events over the week, and we are inviting community partners and organizations to consider hosting an event during the week as well. If you would like to express interest in hosting an event, you can contact us at ottawabmhcoalition@gmail.com. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you again next month